Welcome back to the next episode of Promoted Podcast, the podcast that gets you promoted and be great when you get there. My name is Renee Wootton, aerospace engineer and pilot, and I am here with my co-host, Felicity Furey, CEO and co-founder of We Aspire. Today, we have a great conversation on strengths and weaknesses. Do you lean into your strengths or do you lean into your weaknesses? Felicity, do you want to kick us off with your thoughts?
I love this topic. And I think early on it was all about how maybe it was like school, or you kind of trained to go, oh, work on your weaknesses, work on your weaknesses. And that was definitely the approach that I took early in my career. And I thought that was the one that would be the most helpful. But I've actually flipped my perspective on it.
Ooh.
And it was actually, shout out to my great mate, Claire Bennett. You're amazing. She taught me this one. And it was just an amazing conversation. One day she said to me, you could be an 8 out of 10 on one skill and a 2 out of 10 on another skill. And so for that second skill, there might be someone out there who's already an 8 out of 10. So you could spend all this time, effort, and energy, and maybe this points to me being an engineer and wanting to be efficient, is you can make that 2 and work really hard on it, and you might get to a 4. But there's still going to be someone who's out there, who's better than you, who's already an 8.
Mm-hmm.
What if instead you took that 8 and you got it to a 9 or even a 10, and you invested your time, effort, and resources working on that? And that was a game changer for me. It really shifted my perspectives on strengths and weaknesses. And I think the other flip that's helped me is thinking about, weaknesses aren't bad. I'm just not good at some stuff. And there's some stuff that I'm also really good at, but it's been such a journey to figure out what that is and actually embrace it. How do you think about it, Renee?
Interesting. I'm going to come from maybe a bit of a controversial perspective, which is what happens if you don't love the stuff that you're really good at. So, let's say you're a 10 out of 10 project engineer, you're great at leading teams, you're great at the detail, but you don't enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
You love strategy, but you're not there. So I think the way I like to think about it is that I would love to contribute to something that I'm incredibly passionate about. And so if that means that I'm a 2 at it, that I want to work hard and I'm super passionate about achieving that, then I'm prepared to bring that up to an 8 over time. Yeah. So, and I think that that's where, I think we've talked about this topic before, the genius zone. So it's kind of like something that you're super passionate about, but you're also really, really incredible at. Sometimes, there may be that imbalance between the skills and what you're passionate about, but then it's finding the crux of where those two things meet and then working really hard at like building that out to that 10.
Yeah, good. That's such a good point. And I love that you mentioned the Genius Zone. So the Genius Zone is from a book. Gay Hendricks, I think, is the author, and fascinating read. Would highly, highly recommend this book. And it's been so powerful for me. And he talks about there's 4 areas. There's your area of incompetence. So, I'm not a surgeon. I haven't studied medicine. I should not go do heart surgery. Then there's competence, where you can do it, but really should you? I feel like cleaning, I'm very bad at. I definitely outsource that. My husband will tell you
That's a great example.
me. I could clean, but there are people who are far better than I am, and so I should not do that. Then there's the stuff that you're excellent at. So for me, it is actually that, exactly like you said, Renee, the project piece. So I can do it. I'm highly skilled at it. I often at work would get a lot of projects to deliver because I was capable in that area, but I didn't love it. And actually, I think this is a really hot tip for people who are getting burnt out in their roles, that maybe you are in your excellence zone. So something you're really good at. So you're reliable for delivering actually in that area. So people want to give you more of that work, but actually you don't enjoy it. And therefore that leads to burnout. Genius zone is the piece that you do want to focus on, and that is where you're in flow. So you may actually be in flow doing that strategy piece, but there might be some things that you need to learn and develop to get there. So I feel like one of the things actually, and this actually speaks exactly to your point, Renee, was public speaking. So growing up, I was told, don't put yourself out there. I would always avoid English presentations because I didn't want to look bad and screw it up. There was a whole bunch of stuff around that. And it was kind of like this, I don't know, maybe a family thing of like, don't put yourself on a stage, really kind of pushing all of that down. And that experience had me think that I probably wouldn't enjoy doing something like public speaking, but actually I really enjoy it. I get so much energy from it. I was awful when I started. Like, go watch the TED Talk in my maiden name, Felicity Bridie, check it out. And I'm embarrassed that is out there. That it's probably not as bad as I think. I'm sure we'll look back on these podcast recordings in 10 years' time going, oh my gosh, look where we were when we started. But the thing is, you've got to start.
So true.
And if I look back on some of those early presentations, I do have a bit of a cringe, but that's where I was at that time. Now, 12 years later, I've spoken to over 25,000 people internationally, and I've definitely improved my skills. And there's still a way for me to go, but I do really enjoy it, and I love wanting to get better. So, yeah, maybe we're both right on this one, Renee. And maybe it depends on the situation and what you're looking at.
Yeah, I think I'm very purpose aligned now and passion aligned. So my purpose is my passion. So for me, it's advancing the aerospace industry in Australia, whether that's through, making sure that the pipeline of talent that we're building across Australia in the aerospace industry is diverse versus delivering really important projects and making sure that I'm on the cusp of innovation. So I'm there seeing the aerospace industry advance. That's the stuff that really drives me. But the way in which I enact that passion is through multiple sources, whether it's the podcast, so speaking to you today to share how to build confidence and how to take that next step as a leader and make sure that you're backed and you're supported, and there is some great learnings and experience you can draw from Felicity and I, through to the work that I'm doing in my research, whether that's, working in sustainable aviation fuel or being a part of conversations where we're drawing on the most innovative practices to decarbonize the aviation industry. So those are all steps that I've taken in my career that haven't been driven by my strengths, have been driven by my passion, and then I've had to work hard to bring my skills up to that level. So a great example of that is my honours thesis. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. So I had to learn how to software engineer. I had to...
It was super technical topic, right?
Very technical, incredibly technical. And it's not my strength. It was not my strength at all. So what I had to learn in that moment was to draw on support networks and other people's experience to elevate my own. So that was the learning there, that you can achieve anything. And this is why I'm a big believer, and you can achieve anything you set your mind to. But you have to be resourceful. You have to have resilience in order to achieve that success. So for me, I think, even thinking about the concept of me becoming an astronaut for Australia one day, right now, I probably don't have the skills and the network in order to elevate my career to that level yet. So what can I be doing today to continue to be strengthened and in a position to be able to take on that opportunity if and when it ever arises? And right now, that means being a technical expert. It means being an expert in the field of aviation. And it might mean building skills in areas I haven't even thought of yet. So for me, I think if you are passionate about what you want to achieve, you really have to work hard. And thankfully, I think the other thing is, if I reflect on my honours thesis and having to delve deep into a topic that I didn't have the skills for and I don't have necessarily the passion for, what it did is it built my broader skills to be even more resourceful, but also built my resilience kind of characteristics as well. And thankfully, I don't have to work in software engineering because that is not my strength. But what it did do is give me awareness of what it means to be in roles like that. And I think those overarching skills around that to make sure that I was successful in what I was trying to set my eyes on was incredibly rewarding as well. So
I can definitely relate to that in my engineering degree. I actually... Someone said I shouldn't tell people this, but I failed maths in my first year of engineering.
I failed physics. So. Look at us now. So I don't know if that was legitimate. I actually, if I could go back, I would have tested that lecturer to be like, are you sure I failed? Because I don't think that I failed. But I did.
It's kind of important for flying airplanes, right?
Yeah. It's very technical. It's, like molecules and gravity.
It's funny, right? Because you go, you actually just got more practice in physics.
Correct.
So,
correct.
Yeah.
Smashed it second time round, just FYI.
I failed maths. Did not smash it on the second time round. I think I barely passed, but I got through. And there was a real shift for me actually around that, because going into engineering, I was worried about I'm not smart enough. Am I going to be able to do it? The maths is hard. And for me, the only way that I could get through the maths was literally just rote learning and just writing, again and again, practice. And so it was hard.
Yeah.
And found that, and then I actually dropped a couple of subjects as well. I dropped a subject and I found materials engineering, I think, as well.
Okay.
So I didn't have a good start, and then I went, okay, I want to actually finish this degree. And a real aha moment for me was that I saw how I could apply my engineering degree in the real world and the change that I could make with this qualification.
Yeah.
I saw, oh my God, I get to design and create the world around me. This is awesome. So my motivation changed. I got some passion, and that why became really powerful for me to get through. I ended up doing 3 semesters of 5 subjects so that I could finish my degree in 4 years, and ended up not failing anymore, which
well done.
Was helpful.
Sounds so intense.
It was so intense. But finally, it was great because I only did 4 subjects a semester, and it made it much easier. But yeah, it taught me resilience, taught me when I apply myself, well, how am I going to figure out, how am I going to get through this? What is a way or a strategy that I could really learn and apply and figure this maths out that I'm going to need. And I thought to be a good engineer, you had to be good at the detail. And early on, I chose jobs that were like structural engineering, which was really detailed because that's what I thought it was to be a good engineer, which didn't suit me at all. I'm actually not the best with detail. Again, another thing I probably shouldn't admit, having that background in engineering. But once I could, had that base level understanding, I did find roles that did suit my strengths more, where it was more leadership or communications or project management. And because I had done that hard work of understanding the right technical questions to ask, it stood me in good stead. So I think you're right. Those moments can be resilience building, and they can actually help you in ways that you might not expect because you've stuck with something and you've pushed through those challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. And for people that don't yet have a passion and therefore not sure where to apply or how hard to go on your strengths versus your weaknesses, I think just keep at it. Like if you have a goal in mind, keep pushing. And I think inevitably, no matter how far you get along, whether or not you achieve that goal or you get halfway there, you'll still learn a lot along the way, and you'll generally learn a lot about yourself. And that's the most important part, because that will then inform any further decisions that you make around your next career move, your next piece of study, whatever that looks like. And I think as well, playing into your strengths and weaknesses, I think the one thing that has made a huge difference in me personally understanding my strengths and weaknesses has helped me build confidence in the way that I show up to certain things. So, for instance, something that I've actually only figured out in the last year is my key strength is communicating and building relationships with people. I kind of was aware around building relationships with people. It comes fairly naturally. I'm not worried about not pleasing people, I suppose, but equally, I'm comfortable if I build a strong relationship or I don't. I'm quite comfortable turning up as I am. But I find it really easy where there's a lot of synchrony or a lot of value alignment or just ease of having an open and transparent conversation with people. It's very easy for me to kind of build relationships. I'm also somebody who's very integral in my word, and I like being vulnerable because I find that it helps me build relationships really quickly. So I've got, this story of leaving home and not having a good relationship with my parents, and I find it quite easy to kind of talk about that now because I'm quite comfortable with that as a human being. I was dealt the cards that I was at the start of my life, and, I've kind of made lemonade as a result with the lemons. So I've found actually having vulnerable conversations has led to me building really beautiful relationships with people. So that's something that I'll keep doing now. But then on top of that, I would say another key strength of mine is communicating. And it was one that I didn't really realize that it was a strength of mine until very recently. I went through a job interview maybe 6 months ago. And the feedback from that interview, I didn't get the job, but what they did say was I was the best communicator out of everyone they interviewed. And I was like, it's very interesting. And then another piece of information, a family member told me, you're a really strong communicator like your dad. And I didn't really know my dad that well, for people listening. So I found that really interesting too. And then all of a sudden it kind of clicked like, I'm actually pretty good at communicating, as it turns out. Like, I kind of assumed that most people were. But now what that means is when I walk in a room and I have to present something, I rely on those strengths and I back myself in those moments rather than feeling like, oh, I'm not ready for this, or I'm not comfortable doing this, or the audience is really senior. What am I going to do? Instead, I'm just like, hi, this is me. Take it or leave it type thing. But here's what I have to say. And I'm comfortable sitting there in that. Whereas my weaknesses, I suppose that's, software engineering, for instance, just not my thing. So in those moments, again, referring to people that are really strong in those skills, do have those, those strengths, and using that information to the benefit of the team.
I think understanding how best to utilize those skills. And actually, I used to think, oh, weaknesses are bad. And, this classic like job interview question of like, tell us about your weaknesses. And like, pretend you have none, right? Like, or just like make it a good, like, oh, I'm a perfectionist, which can be bad. But also, look, my work is perfect. Like those really silly ones.
Yeah.
And what I've found, though, is particularly when you're leading and you're working within teams, is that understanding your weaknesses is so powerful and effective, because then you can plug your, the other side of the equation with other people in the team. And I learned this very early on when I had co-founded Power of Engineering, Gillian. She is so like yin to my yang. Like, she is the detail person. She has another amazing skills, really good with process and putting things together. And I found that was so helpful when I worked with her. In the beginning, though, I didn't even realize it. I think because at school and uni, you're so trained to work by yourself as an individual and to get get the mark that's an A, rather than going, oh, okay, well, if you collaborated with 3 people, you could get, a much better result. And so early on working with her, I'd go, oh, I've got this idea. This is so exciting. Can we talk it through? Can we discuss it? And she'd go, oh, I'm going to go away and think about it. I'd be like, what do you mean? Like, let's talk about it now. And I was like, that's so different. And it was such a blessing. And I'm so glad that we worked together so early on, particularly I feel like, one of my first leadership opportunities, because I got to see how I didn't have to do everything myself. I could work with someone, and together we, have these amazing skills. And I've worked with people who've got a similar skill set over and over again. And I thought, like, for me, ideas come naturally to me. Like, I'm like, this idea and this idea. So, and then I need some help kind of putting the pieces together. And then once I'm super clear on the plan, I'll be like, go deliver. I'll be like, total gun for that. Yeah. And that's working with different people and trying different things, testing out different ideas, concepts, ways of working has helped me kind of narrow that down. But I think you often don't get that perspective if you haven't had lots of wide-ranging experiences, or you're having different projects that you're working on.
Agreed. And I think as well, back to school, like we kind of get oriented to say that, it's good to have these strengths and it's bad to have these weaknesses. And so we hyper fixate on, what we're really strong at, because it's almost like a status thing. Like, oh, I'm really good at numerical methods, but I really suck at like structural engineering. And so you naturally almost go, oh, I'm only going to tell the positive side of the story. But actually, we're all human. We all have positive and negative stories to share, but actually being vulnerable about those upfront means that you will be able to build a team and understand where you can flex, where you need to pull back, or where you need extra support from external parties, consultants, whatever it might be, in order to round out your team to make sure that you're thinking about things from all of the perspectives, not just where your strengths lie.
Yeah. And I think any strength or any weakness can be a good thing. And what I mean by that is that because I was like, oh, I just come up with ideas. Like, that's a bit useless. I don't actually deliver anything. And get an engineering context, delivery, writing reports, producing things is highly valued. And the ideas might not necessarily be as valued, particularly when you've got to go into kind of a delivery phase. So I thought I was pretty useless. But then when I met my counterparts who were really great at helping make the ideas happen, I've even had people in my team say, oh, I'm not good with the ideas piece. I'm like, oh, amazing. Like, that's like, let's work together. This is great. Yeah. So I think really having that deep understanding of yourself and also others is a really powerful place to be, particularly when you're in a leadership position.
Yeah, actually having this conversation makes me think back to my final year of aerospace engineering. And I had a subject to play with. It was a, what do you call it? An elective subject. So it wasn't like a core component of engineering. And I love a challenge. So one of the challenges that I had at the time was that I wasn't as good in theoretical math. So I was really strong in numerical methods and statistics, but I was really bad in theoretical math. So I was like, right, for my elective, I'm going to go and do theoretical math. And I was like, I want to break this barrier of feeling scared and fearful of this subject. So I was like, I'm going to go do a subject. And I sat down in the first lecture. And I was sitting there, I was like, oh, God. Like, it was so wildly out of this world. So it was like, talking like fourth, fifth, sixth dimensional mathematics. And I was like, I can't even imagine that. I was like, my brain can only interpret 3 dimensions. I can't do 6. And it was, like the subset of T within the subset of S. And I was like, nah. I was like, I'm calling it quits. Like, this is a weakness, and it's a weakness I'm willing to accept. So I quit that course and I went and studied, I think I did rocket aerospace engineering, like satellites and rockets. And it was an epic course, still very challenging, but like enjoyed it far more than having to think about subsets of T's in weird 6-dimensional space. I think knowing yourself, backing yourself, accepting your weaknesses and trying not to play to them. But if you need to play to them to achieve your passion, then get support, make it happen. Even if you're moderate at it, but it unlocks an opportunity for you to play to your passions, then it's still worth the endeavour to
totally. I think taking a team approach takes for a different perspective, because your strengths are going to be someone else's weaknesses, and it's about finding those right fits. And it can be tricky, I think, often in a work context, because the team you get is the team you get, and it can take time to change that, particularly if you're a leader. But taking that approach, I think, has been really helpful to get that holistic view of strengths and weaknesses. Let us know what yours are. How have you navigated strengths and weaknesses? Are you bad at maths? Like, maybe, I don't know. I can't say. We did engineering degree. Maybe we passed.
I liked maths. Physics is a different story. I still enjoyed it. I passed it on.
Let us know what you think. DM us on LinkedIn or jump on our website, weaspire.education/podcasts, and get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. You've been listening to the Promoted Podcast with Felicity and Renee. Bye for now.
Bye.